Hey everyone, this is Fady from Heartbeat Productions and welcome to another video. Today I want to talk about the Orion 32 Plus routing in console setting. I know that that's one of the biggest thing about the Orion, which is one of their biggest advantages and disadvantages because of how complex the routing system can be. My goal today is by the end of this video, we kind of unlock a lot of the features of the Orion 32 Plus, the Gen 3 specifically. That's the one I'm going to do today. I'm going to do a separate one for the Gen 4 because they're using a different updated console that looks a little bit different. But as of today, we'll tackle down the Gen 3. I want to go through settings, I want to go through console settings, specifically routing, and how to unlock all these features in the Orion, set it up with your DAW, and then make sure you're actually using all the features that are in it and set up correctly. I've gotten multiple people sending emails. It's like, hey, we got it set up, but then we're not getting audio here or not getting audio there. And I get it because the console can actually be complex. I've used it myself, I've been using it for a while, and it's a little tricky and it took me a little bit of time to wrap my head around it. And that's why I even waited on making this video until I get very comfortable with the console first and understand all the ins and the out of it. So let's dig in. I'm gonna screen share my computer here in just a second and then we can run through it. I'll walk you guys through my current setup, how I'm using it, but I'll also walk you through all the variable options that you can use and how to set it up with your system. So let's just dig in. Okay, as you guys can see, here's the screen of the Gen 3, the Orion 32 Plus Gen 3 control panel. So let's kind of walk through first what are some of these buttons are and what they do, and then we're gonna dig from there a little bit into the routing and all the specs of the routing. First thing, at the very top left, that's your power on, off. And then on the bottom, on the top left right here, you got a USB sign and a Thunderbolt sign. USB is if this unit is connected via USB versus Thunderbolt, which is the main difference is via USB you're only getting 24 channels, but via Thunderbolt you're getting 64 I/O of inputs and outputs simultaneously at the same time. So as you guys can see, the Thunderbolt is one highlighted, which because I'm running it into Thunderbolt. Then right here you got two screens, and their point is to show you some inputs and outputs, and then you can choose what you're seeing. It could be anything, so I can basically choose to see my line inputs. Here's my 32 line inputs, and if I can open my talkback here, you guys can see here's the signal from my talkback coming into my input 32. And then I could change it to anything, and then the same on this side, which is cool because it allows you to see different parameters of signals coming in and out. And then I'm going to turn my talkback off. And then here's your clock. So internal, which is the oven clock, word clock, ADATs, MADI, USB, SPDIF, what are the source of your clock, and then what's the sample rate of your clock. On the right side up here, that's just straight monitor volume. If you're plugging any speakers to the monitor left and right of the back of that unit, so that would control the volume for this, as well as muting that monitor. Really straightforward right here. Here's like the device. If I have multiple devices, I should see several ones in here. Here's settings, which let you do the monitor trim. That's dBu. I'm working at 24 dBu, but that's like lower trims. Line output volume, brightness of the console. Brightness of the screen on the actual unit. Here's the oscillators, which is a really cool feature. We'll talk about it here in just a second. If I have it plugged in USB, this is the amount of channels that I see. SRC on or off, which has to do with conversion, when converting sample rates when you are plugged into the SPDIF. Buffer size, this is for Windows only. I'm using Mac, so it doesn't really matter at this point. And then Thunderbolt latency mode, I've had it at normal most of the time, never had any problem with it. All right, so I'm going through these really quick because I want to get into the most important part. So you see right here on the console, there's three different tabs. You have routing tab, mixer tab, effects tab, and trim tab. Let's go with the simplest one. On trim, it's a really cool feature that the unit has because you have 32 analog inputs and 32 analog outputs. It allows you to do any digital trim to these inputs or outputs. So you guys can see here, all the trims are in dBu, and then you can do all, which means it trims the entire thing, or you can just do individual. So you guys can see my line outputs, I have it set on all, and I have no trimming happening at all. But on my line input, I'm actually trimming channel 27 and 28, which is my analog synth, because it needed some more gain to it. And I'm doing individual so I can change these individually, which is 27 and 28 is left and right. And here's some resets for it. It's a really cool thing. I really like that. This is the trim for the speakers, the main speakers. I'm doing that from my Grace unit, so I'm not using really any trim from the Orion. Okay, effects, we'll get to that in a minute. Mixer is, it's the idea of having cue mixes. So let's say you have a live session, and then you're tracking, and then you want to send some headphone mixes, and then you send this to an artist, whether that artist is in the same room with you or a separate room, but they want to have their own headphone mix to be able to mix themselves, or to be able to hear a separate mix than you. So this is kind of where the mixes are. So when I selected mixer, you can see now it has mixer 1, mixer 2, mixer 3, and mixer 4, which are 4 different mixes that you can send. And then only mixer 1 though has a built-in reverb, which is the Aura verb. And then you can see here the sends are basically the reverb sends of this. So it's like a built-in verb on only mixer 1. It's a really cool verb, and it makes it really simple to quickly, if you have a singer, it's like, hey, I want to hear some verb on my headphones. So really quick, you can turn on, choose, let's say if they were channel number 1, just turn some verb up, and then that's it. But I wish they would have done that to mix 2, 3, and 4. They're only doing it to mix 1, so it's great if you have 1, but sometimes I would have multiple band members, and they all also want to hear verb, so that it gets a little bit complex. There are ways around it, but it's a little bit more complex, but it's not a simple one, obviously. The rest is basically 32 channels mixer. You guys can see here, all 32 channel mixer, and then you got volumes for each mixer, and then you got pan for each channel, you got pan. You can also stereo link. So this, I stereo linked channel 1 and 2, and then now I've hard pan it left and right, and then now became one stereo channel to play it, to mix it. And then here is your master headphone mix for mixer 1. So this is what the mixers are. We're going to learn here in a bit how to assign channels inside the mixer to send it to headphone mixes, but this is kind of the basic controls of the mixes. And then the top controls are the reverb for only mixer 1, because you guys see once I go to mixer 2, the reverb goes away. Basically has like color, pre-delay, early reflection, late reflection, richness, which has to do with the tone, reverb time, room size, and output level. And then the send button on each one of these channels right here is how much verb is being applied to that channel. Think of it as like an effect send and return, where you send some of that dry signal of the vocals into that verb, and then that verb, you hear it on the master of the whole channel, though. It's not like in its own individual effect thing, if that makes sense. All right, let's go to routing, because that's really what this video is mostly about, is the routing of the Orion, which is a blessing and a curse. It's amazing how flexible it is, and it's a curse of how complex it is. But once you get it, and that's the goal for the end of this video, it'll actually be a game changer for your studio setup and allow you to expand a lot of what you're doing. So what I did in here, I basically pulled up the default setting. So there is not really much happening. So everything is really default at this point. And then we're just going to go through it here and explain it. So on the left side, you see from and to. It's a little bit confusing how they labeled it, but let's break it down this way to simplify. On any audio interface, you have analog inputs and analog outputs. You got 32 analog line inputs that goes into your unit, physical analog line inputs, and they're all done via DB25, so each one carries a channel. And then you have, that's the analog inputs. Then the analog outputs on the Orion, on the Gen 2, on the Orion Gen 3, it's basically 32 line outputs. They're all done via DB25, and you also have 2 TRS line outputs that goes to your speaker. So you got 34 analog line outputs. And I keep emphasizing on analog because this unit takes so many different formats of inputs and outputs. So I'm specifying right now, here's my analog ins and my analog outs. 32 analog ins, 34 analog outs. Let's identify those on the console. On the console, you see here line in, that first line, which is 1 to 32. Here's the 32 line inputs that goes into my audio interface. And then the line outputs, here's the 32 line outputs that goes on my interface. You guys can see it right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 32. And then here's the monitor, which is those 2 extra analog outputs that they have to send your speakers. Now you can go on any of line inputs or line outputs and you can label them. So for example, on my setup, I have, let me turn my analog synth here and I'll see which channels they're in. You guys can see, you can even see the signal up there on 27 and 28. So I know, for example, that 27 and 28 is my Poly D analog synth. So I can right click here, double click, I'm sorry, on it. In this channel 27, I'm gonna label it synth L, and 28 synth right. Whoops, that's the wrong spelling. So you can see now that these are labeled, and I know it's hard to see, it sucks. I think I wish they would have done it in a way that actually you can see better. But if you highlight it though, you can see here line input 28 synth right. You guys can see it right there. So I can label everything plugged into my studio, which when I call my template in a little bit here toward the end of the video, you guys will see all the labelings that I did, because I have my Heritage Audio analog pre's are going to these inputs. I have my synth going to these inputs. I have my 4710 going to specific inputs, and I have my Ventec audio going to specific input, whichever pre's or line inputs that you're using. So you can label everything. Now on the line outputs, same principle. These are physical 32 line outputs that you can send them to headphone mixes, you can send them to analog summing, you can send them to whatever you want to as physical line output, different sets of speakers, whatever that looks like. In my case, I'm using, starting from channel 17 till 32, which is 16 channels, I'm sending that to my analog summing unit, which is my Dangerous Music Bus LT. And if you guys haven't seen that video, you should check it out on the YouTube channel. I made a separate video about how I'm using the Bus LT. So basically channel 17 to 32 for me is summing, and it's cool because the Orion is DB25 and the Dangerous Music is also DB25, so I'm only using 2 DB25 cables, each carry 8 channels, and boom, here's all my 32 channels. I'm sorry, here's all my 16 analog summing channels. I am personally not using, as of right now, I am not using line 1 till 16. Probably will in the future, but I'm not really using, because a lot of the separate monitor outputs and headphone outputs and all that stuff, I'm using my Grace design unit for all of the control room, and I'm using the Behringer P16 units for all of the live tracking room. Okay, so that we identified analog inputs and analog outputs. So here's what it gets a little bit tricky. Naturally, on any other interface, if you owned like an Apollo interface or owned Motu, I have a Motu interface that I use here, and I used to have a Focusrite once before. If you plugging something to analog input 1, analog input 1 will be also identified in your DAW as input 1, or input 16 is input 16 on the DAW, like naturally is 1 to 1. Here is actually not that way. And I'm going to explain here, and I'm going to try to be, I'm going to try to simplify it as much as I can, so that way it's not too complex. So this unit, when you plug this unit to your computer identified this unit as 64 channel input and 64 channel output. If you are plugged in Thunderbolt, if you're plugged in USB, it will recognize 24 channels. Why is that important? Because they're not 1 to 1. You have 64 channel inputs that your computer is recognizing, and then you choose from your Orion what goes into those 64 channels. It could be a little bit of some of your analog inputs, it could be some of your digital inputs, and then you choose, and you even choose the order of them, and it doesn't have to be one-to-one. Why is that important? So let's gonna go here on the digital inputs. So let's look at what forms of digital inputs this unit takes. So this unit takes ADAT. So the Gen 3 have 2 ADAT inputs. Each can carry 8 channels, so that's 16. You guys see it here, it's the red one, so ADAT 1 to 16. This unit also takes a MADI input, which is via the MADI optical cable, and that carries 64 channels of audio. You see it here, MADI 1 to 32 and 33 to 64. It's those 2 lines. And then this unit also takes SPDIF input, which is another form of digital input, which is a stereo. It's only 2 channel, and you guys can see it here, SPDIF input. So these are all the digital inputs, like external digital inputs that the unit is taking. If you combine these, you got 64, you got 16, and you got 2. That's a lot of inputs. But remember, the unit on the computer can only record simultaneously 64 channels. What's that mean? It means I have 32 analog inputs, I have 64 MADI inputs, I have 16 ADAT inputs, I have 2 SPDIF inputs. There's a couple more here I'm going to talk about in a second, but just let's hold off here for a second. I got all these inputs. I'm going to pick and choose from these to a maximum number of 64. That's what actually here is the Thunderbolt record. Do you guys see these right here? Thunderbolt record 1 to 32, Thunderbolt record 33 to 64. They called it Thunderbolt record. I call it DAW inputs. And basically, it's on your whether you're using Pro Tools, whether you're using Logic, Ableton, whatever, when you open it, you're going to notice that this unit has 64 channel of inputs on it. And you're recording into these 64, that's the Thunderbolt record channel 1 to 64. So what I can do, I can take, for example, 32 analog inputs and put them one-to-one from 1 to 32. And then I'm going to go starting channel 33, and then the first 8 channels from 33, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I will make those ADAT inputs. And then after that, I'm going to pick 4 MADI inputs. And after that, I'm going to pick 2 SPDIF input. And I can keep patching from these into my console. So, which we'll do that here in just a second, but that's kind of to explain. And that's how it's being recognized on my DAW. What's the advantage of this? The advantage of this is it allows you to have a lot more than 64 inputs at once, all plugged into your studio. And then the interface itself works as a digital patch bay that if you have 96 inputs combined, and I'm choosing which 64 out of these 90 are going to be recorded in that session. And I can change that per session and remove stuff and repatch stuff however I want to, which is really cool. So right here, let's kind of review. You got line inputs, which is the physical line inputs. And then you got MADI inputs, which is digital MADI inputs, digital ADAT inputs, digital SPDIF inputs. Okay, let's kind of keep going. You have effects, AFX out and mix out. And I call these virtual inputs. And what they are is you got 16 channel of effects, which is using the DSP plugin effects on that console. So that way you can do some EQ or compression or some effects on vocals or while tracking. And you could choose whether to record them or not, or you can use them only for monitoring purposes. But the effect point is I can use any of these effects and I can make that, assign it into an input or assign it for headphones for mixes. That's where those 16 effect channels are. And then these are headphone mix 1, mix 2, left and right, mix 3, mix 4, which are the mixers basically. It's the output of these mixers 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that way I can take mix 1 and assign it to a specific output. And that goes to headphone preamp 1, and then I can assign it to another output and then send it to another set phone of headphone preamps for my drummer or my bass player or something like that. Okay, now that we get the principle of how this works, let's kind of work on how these things are patched inside the Orion. Okay, so you got line input. So let's say here, channel 1, I have my 1073 mic pre. And then channel 2, I have my 610 mic pre. And then we already have channel 27 and 28 is the synth that we agreed on. And let's say channel 3, I have my API mic pre. Let's stop right there. So we got 1073 API, 610 API, and I got my analog synth. And I know that channel 32 is my talkback. I actually have it routed to this channel. So here's my talkback. It's channel 32. Okay, so here's those. Now, naturally speaking, now, down at the bottom here, Thunderbolt record 1 to 32, I kind of resetted everything so we start from scratch. They're not assigned to anything yet. So what I'm going to do, I want in my DAW, channel 1 in my DAW to be my 1073. So I'm going to grab my line input 1073 and I'm going to just drag it like this and put it on Thunderbolt record channel 1. And you see that it carries the same color and the same input number. And then I'm going to make my 610 recording into my DAW channel 2 and my API recording into my DAW channel 3. And then I'm going to take my synth, which is channel 27, and you can shift and select both. And I'm going to record this into channel 5 and 6. So see, I took something that is channel 27 line input and I put it into my DAW into 5 and 6. Why is that important? Because a lot of people say, like, well, I put my synth is channels 27 and 28, but I go to my DAW and then it's like, I can't find it. Well, it's because it doesn't matter where the line input is on your DAW. What matters is where's the Thunderbolt record, and that is the patching that you're looking for. Where's your Thunderbolt record? So you guys see here on the top screen, line input, if I play synth, is going to show it's playing on channel 27 and 23. But if I want to preview the Thunderbolt record, and then if I play it, you see it plays channel 5 and 6. This is what's going to be corresponding to my software, which DAW I'm using, and these are the channels that I need to assign in my DAW. I can also take 4 of my MADI channels, channel 1 to 4 of my MADI channels, and then I can plug them to channel 10, 11, 12, 13. And see, I can take my ADAT input, which in this case, my ADAT input is actually my 4710. I have my 4710, the universal audio plugged in ADAT, and I have 4 mic pre's in here. So 4710, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to grab this and put it into whatever channel I want. Channel 7, channel 8, channel 9. And I basically build a template, just drag and drop until I fill up all my 64 channel of DAW record. You obviously don't have to fill all 64, but that's how you grab some inputs from analog, you grab some inputs from SPDIF, you grab some inputs from MADI, you grab some inputs from ADAT. You can also grab some inputs from your effects channels, because the effect channels, they work like send and return. It's the same way if you're used to working with analog consoles. You don't put the reverb or the EQ, a lot of consoles work that way. You don't put it as an insert on the channel. What it is, it's an effect channel that I send audio to, and then I cannot grab that audio back into something. And that's what it is I send audio to effect channel 1, I put a compressor on that one, and then the output of effect channel 1, which is right here, I'll take that and put it somewhere, and I tell it where it goes. Okay, let's keep going. So we kind of discussed the from part. I think we explained all of the taps on the from. Now all of the taps on the to line outputs, we've explained this. Those are physical line outputs that the unit is sending. Monitor are the physical set of speakers that are going to your speakers. Thunderbolt record are the 64 channels that your DAW is recognizing. MADI output, because this unit has 64 digital input MADI, 64 digital output MADI, so it's the same thing. It's the 64 digital outputs that are going. ADAT outputs is the same thing. 16 ADAT, because it has 2 ADAT jacks on the back. SPDIF is the SPDIF output. And then effects in, these are the the inputs of the effects channels that are receiving like vocal track or something to be compressed or EQ'd under the effects, which we'll run an example with the effect here in just a second. I'll show you guys how to do it. Then after that, you guys see here mix 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm just gonna mute the whole row so that way it starts clean. Okay, so mix, you see mix channel 1, 2, 3, 4, which are the 4 mixers that we talked about. So let's kind of use a practical example, because I think I personally learn the best way when I kind of like set a scenario that I want to implement in the studio, and I try to replicate that scenario and make it happen. All right, let's say we have a microphone. Well, no, let's say the synth, the analog synth, because it's right here and I can see the signal for it. And then I want to record that analog synth, and then I want to send it to a headphone mix. And I also want to use some of the DSP plugins to process that analog synth. Okay, where is my inputs for analog synth? It's channel 27 and 28. Where do I want to record that into my DAW? As of right now, we dragged it into channel 5 and 6. And you guys can see here, Thunderbolt record, you can see that it's playing, you're receiving audio signal in channel 5 and 6. All right, so we got that set up. All right, I want to send that to the headphone mix, and I want to send the dry signal that is not processed with any plugins. So I'm going to grab basically those channel 27 and 28, and I'll literally drag that and put it into mixer 1, channel 1 and 2. So I'm going to go now to mixer 1. You can already see channel 1 and 2 are now labeled synth left and right. I'm going to link them as a stereo channel. Now if I play, all right, so now I have my synth playing into that channel, which is what's going to that headphone. All right, so now I want to send this to the artist. All right, so I have a headphone preamp. I'm plugging this to line output 1 and 2 on the back of my unit. That's where my headphone pre is, and that's how I send them a headphone mix. So where's line outputs? Here's line output 1 and 2. So I'm going to grab mix 1 and 2, which is the headphone mix 1 and 2, and I'm going to drag that and put it on line output 1 and 2. Now my line output, physical line output 1 and 2 that are being sent to a headphone pre that it goes to my live room for recording, so for the artist to listen, are receiving a signal from mixer number 1, which is Q mix 1 basically. I could send them mix 2 or mix 3 or mix 4, or I can send different headphones. So if I follow this, I can send headphone output or mix 2. I can send this to line output 3 and 4. That's kind of normally what a lot of people would do. 5 and 6, here you go. So here's all my headphone outputs are basically the first 8 channels of my interface. And I send those to some headphone preamp with 8 separate mixes, and I can send that to an artist. Right now, the artist is receiving channel 1 and 2, and then I'm going to go to the mixer, and then here it is. And then I can turn that synth up and down. And because this is in channel 1, I can also add a built-in quick verb. Here is some reverb on and off, and how much reverb I'm applying. All right, great. The artist says, I want some compression. I want to hear it with compression. So now we need to use the AFX on the console. So how do we do that? So I'm going to go to Effects. And I'm going to... this is one thing that's annoying about this Orion thing, is that you guys can see how, like, when you stretch the screen bigger, things are a little bit out of proportion, which I think it's just a display error that they have. They need to push an update to fix this, because this is very annoying. All right, so I'm going to say, because we're processing a stereo chain, because it's left and right, I'm going to link 1 and 2 together. And then I'm going to say, add a new effect on 1 and 2. A name I'm going to add vintage let's say a simple, and I added this compressor. Let me just resize the screen so that way it actually shows properly. Okay, I'm resizing the screen here so you guys can see. All right, yeah, here's a compressor. All right, and now effect channel 1 is that compressor. Now what I need to do is I need to send my synth to AFX channel 1. Where's my synth? It's channel 20. Here's channel 27 and 28. Drag it and put it into AFX 1. Right there. I put it into AFX 1. You can see now if I go to my effects, AFX 1, which is linked stereo, it's already recognizing that the line inputs is coming from synth left and synth right. Now if I play my synth, you guys see the output happening on the compressor. I'm going to change that effect here. Okay, I'm using a compressor here. Here's my signal. Use my threshold, and you guys can see the compression starting to happen. There's more compression, a lot more compression. So I'm processing that signal, but then now I need to go back to the routing, and I need to say the process signal, which is going to be AFX 1 and 2, I need to give that to their in-ears. So I'm going to grab AFX output 1 and 2. You guys see it right there, AFX output 1 and 2. And I'm going to put that into my mixer, and I'm going to put that into channel 3 and 4. Now if I go to my mixer, and I'm going to link those, you guys see what's happening now? There's two signals. Channel 1 and 2 is the dry signal of my synth, and then channel 3 and 4 is actually my compressed signal, and you guys can see it's a little bit quieter because it's compressed and I didn't have any makeup gain. And then now the artists want to hear the dry signal, great, turn the other one off, or they want to hear the processed signal, then turn the dry signal off, and then now they're hearing the process signal. Do you want more processing on the analog synth? So you'll go back to effects. We have one DSP effect added, which is this one. I can go add a second one. I can add an EQ and then just do some stuff to that EQ. And then I can add different stuff. So you can add basically effects, and you keep adding effects to that channel. That's how you grab a specific channel, you send it to the effects, you process it, you bring it back, and then when you bring it back, now you put that into the mixer for their headphones. And cool thing about this is when we go back to the routing in here, now that processed signal, which is basically effects 1 and 2, I can grab that effects 1 and 2 and I can put it into my DAW recording. Here you go, I'm putting it into channel 9 and 10. So right now, if I go to my DAW and record and play, I should be able to see a dry signal, which is these two. It's the analog synth dry signal, and these two, which are the processed signal. You guys can see here, it's channel 5 and 6 is the dry signal, channel 9 and 10 is the processed signal, and I get to choose which one in my DAW to record, or just go ahead and record both. I like this about this console, it's obviously took me a little longer to get there, but on my UAD console, you could either, when you put an insert as a plugin, sure, it's a lot simpler to put one, and then here you go. But that insert as a plugin, you either can monitor it or you can record it, but you can't do both. Here is cool because I get to, let's say I'm tracking drums and I put some compression on the snare for monitoring reasons. I don't really like how it sounds. So I would actually end up recording both signals. I'll record the dry signal just so I have it in case, and I also record the process signal, and I could either blend between both or choose one or the other later when I'm mixing, but that gives you the option to do something like this. Everything else in the console follows literally the same concept that we've explained. You got a physical set of inputs, a digital set of inputs, and some virtual inputs, which is your effects. Now you have a physical set of outputs, you have a digital set of outputs, and you have virtual outputs. There's one more thing about the virtual outputs we didn't talk about that I'm going to explain here, which is the Thunderbolt Play. You guys see this? So there's 64 channel of Thunderbolt Play. Which is your outputs on your DAW, not the physical set of outputs on your unit, it's the outputs on your DAW. So let's pick up a scenario and try to apply it. Scenario number 1, I'm using analog summing and I want to choose the first 16 outputs of my DAW to be my summing 16 channel of summing. So how do I do this? I will go, here's Thunderbolt play 1 to 16, and I will just label those sum 1, sum 2, sum 3, sum 4, all the way to 16. And then I'm just going to grab all 16, and I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to put them into line output 17 to 32. These are the line outputs that I have on the back of my unit that are going to my analog summing. Now if I go into my DAW and I select channel 1 to 16, send them as a summing, it will kind of follow that on the back of my unit from channel 17 to 32. Okay, another scenario that I'm actually using. I am sending a digital audio to my Grace unit for A-being mixes and stuff like that. So I send one ADAT cable that carries 8 channel of audio in it. 8 mono, so 4 stereo mixes. So how do I do this? I'm going to go to my, I'm going to call this mix A left, and then mix B left. And this is kind of, and then, I'm sorry. This is mix A left, and this is mix A right. And then just kind of follow the same principle. This would be mix B left, and then this is mix B right. And then you move on. All right, I'm going to take mix A, and I'm going to send that to ADAT. So I'm going to drag it, go to ADAT output channel 1 and 2. Then mix B, I'm going to take it to ADAT output channel 3 and 4. And then now on my monitor controller, because mine receives ADAT, I can switch between inputs on it. ADAT input 1, I'm hearing mix 1, mix A. ADAT input 2, I'm hearing mix B. And then in my DAW, I will grab that stereo audio channel, I'll send that to mix A, and I'll grab a different song and I'll send it to mix B, and then I can A-B between stuff. That's really cool because it allows you to A-B between mixes, it allows you to A-B between, I use analog chains for mixing, so I can send a channel to an analog chain and send that to mix A, and then send a channel with some plugins or different processing to mix B, and I can A-B stuff using that way. Or you can send it, make this basically, instead of mix A and mix B, that would be speaker A, speaker B, speaker C, and then you'll send those. In this case, you have speaker A, which is mix 1 and mix A, speaker A, that is going to your monitor outputs. Here you go, which is monitor left and right. That's the physical TRS outputs on the back. Then I chose analog output 1 and 2 to be a second set of speakers, analog output 3 and 4 to be a third set of speakers, and on and on. I'll grab mix B, which is my second set of speakers, and I'll put that into line output 1 and 2. That became my second set of speakers and third set of speakers. And I can send audio from my DAW to different speakers if I want to listen to, or surround system or something like that. That's kind of how I would do it in this scenario. Now, whatever you do, up here where you got session, you can obviously save what you do. This one is a little cool because it let you, when you select save, it also let you select which parameters are you saving. I'm saving all my effects. I'm only saving digital inputs and outputs routing. I'm saving trims. I'm saving my reverbs and mixers. I'm saving all the analog inputs and outputs, whichever you're saving. So you can basically have like a main template, and then let's say you're only changing the headphone mixes and you save only the changed headphone mixes for a specific artist. You can recall that, but the routing doesn't change. You're not changing routing. You can change whatever you want, and then you can save those to these 5 presets, which kind of gives you like a quick, easy recall for those. Right here on the right, it shows you signal. This is what's receiving signal currently, and you see there's 2 lid because these 2 are digital units that are receiving digital inputs, so it's being lid. And then next is the matrix, which is, it kind of like shows you all the routing that we just did, but in a matrix kind of format. So you can either use it from here or do it the way that we did it. The rest is undo, redo, save, and load. And basically that's kind of a simple not as complicated as I can. So that's basically like a simpler way to explain the routing in the Orion 32 Gen 3. I'm going to make a separate video for the Gen 4 because some of the routings are a little bit different and the console looks a little bit different. And then also it doesn't have AFX channels and there's few differences between them. So I'll make a separate video for this. But until then, I hope this video was helpful for you. I hope it explained to you how to do the routing in your unit. I'm going to make probably a separate video with my DAW. I use Pro Tools and how I am routing this into Pro Tools and my full Pro Tools setup with this unit, as well as a walkthrough of what I have plugged in and all the channels that I'm using. So I'll basically explain my current setup and you guys can take it and see if any of it applies to your setup. If this video is helpful for you, make sure to subscribe, share it, and then if you have any questions, make sure to either put a comment on the video or just shoot me an email at fady@heartbeatproductions.org, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. And also, if you have any inquiries about consultations or studio setup or routing setup, make sure that you email me, and I'll be happy to set one up with you guys. That's it for today's video, and until I see you guys for the next one.